What's up, everybody? We're back here at Hustlers Casino Live playing another massive game, 5-5-10 with occasional $20 straddle once again. And one of the first hands of the day, I get dealt Pocket Kings, the Cowboys.
You know we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? I can't stand it.
In hijack. It does fold around to a low jack, and they decide to put in the limp for $10. $20 straddle is not on this time. And I decide to ISO. I bump it up to $40. Does fold around rather quickly all the way back to low jack, and they put in a call. So we're going to be going heads up to a flop of King 3-10, all spades. But we have top set here, really hoping that the board can pair at some point. Obviously, I could be losing the flushes already, but I mean, we have top set. Not too worried, right? Low jack does check. I decide to put out a small wager for $30. They quickly put in a call. Turn brings in the 9 of clubs. A little bit scary of a turn here. They can have queen jack suited here. So yeah, they could have a straight already. They do check, but I'm still not really too worried about that. I mean, we have top sets. Still going to be betting here, of course. I do put out a bet of $130. They think for a little bit, and unfortunately, we start to see the bad news brewing. They check raise me to $330. Really rough spot for me here, ladies and gentlemen. Do have top set. Could they really be raising worse? I mean, sometimes they can. They can, of course, still have some bluffs. But yeah, just not looking good based on the player that, you know, I've seen to my right. So yeah, but we're going to be putting in the call, and the river comes the 5 of clubs, a relative brick here. And my opponent immediately pretty much is going for some chips, and they put out a bet of $400. And I'm just thinking at this point, am I gonna call or raise? Did think about it for like half a minute just in case to see if I should ever be raising, but my opponent was a little bit on the older side, so I thought, hey, I mean, are they really gonna be bluffing here too often? They could, but sometimes it's not that likely with this player type. So but yeah, I decided to just put in a call, and I see the very, very bad news. They show me that they flopped a low weak flush. But yeah, just a bit upset there. Not a good way to lose first pot of the day, but hopefully it can get better from here on out. And next hand, and I get dealt King 8 off in the $10 straddle. Does fold all the way around to big blind, and they decide to put in a limp. But no, we don't allow limps out here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be bumping it up, and I ISO to $35. They put in a call. We're going to go heads up in the blinds. The flop comes 9, 7, 6, 2 diamonds. Do have the 8 of diamonds in my hand, looking pretty good. Open-ended to the relative nuts here. They do check, and this time, instead of stabbing in position, I do decide to just check it back. Turn brings in the queen of clubs. My opponent checks again, and this time I'm, 2 checks. Looking pretty capped here. I'm going to start putting pressure on them. I do put out a bet of $50, and my opponent pretty much puts in the call rather quickly. River comes the ace of diamonds. Really scary card here for the ace of diamonds to be coming out here, but I did ISO pre, so I will have more ace-x than my opponent unless they're really playing some limp strat with some weaker ace-x and ace-x suited. But they do put in the check, and yeah, just with the 8 of diamonds in my hand, and king doesn't really matter, but with that 8 of diamonds in my hand, I do decide to get really super aggressive here, and I want to just attack that capped range of my opponent, put it in 2 checks. So I decided to put out a massive overbet. Yes, a massive overbet of $230. Before I can even get the money in the middle, my opponent just mucks their cards, and we take it down. The next hand, I get dealt ace queen off in the $10 straddle. Under the gun comes along with the limp, small blind limps, and big blind limps. So we're 4 ways with the limping, and I'm just like, this shit ain't happening. Going to be ISOing again. That's just been the story of this poker session so far. make it $80 to go. Under the gun folds, small blind calls, however, and then big blind actually folds. Pretty interesting here. But yeah, we're going to be going heads up in position to a flop of queen 9-9 2 spades. Looking pretty good here. Have top pair, top kicker. Obviously worried about the 9. It could be some draws out there. Do have the ace of spades, really important card to have here. Could go backdoor runner to the nut flush. So looking pretty good here. And unfortunately, my opponent just randomly just starts to donk here. They just take the lead and they donk for $125. I'm like, a little awkward here. I am the aggressor, but we're going to let it happen. They're betting into me. I'm in position, so I'm just going to put in the smooth call. Turn brings in the 5 of clubs. Relative brick. It has nothing to do with the flop, basically. And my opponent continues. They're betting. They put out a donk for $350. I am getting a little bit worried at this point. Do have top pair, top kicker, but they can just be donking a 9. They could also be donking a weak queen, have jack 10, king 10, and suited, all of these hands they can possibly have. But yeah, just really hoping they do not have a 9. That would be gross. So yeah, I do decide once again just to put in the smooth call here. No point in start raising in position. They start continuing. They're just going to have a 9. I'm just going to get stacked. So don't want that to happen. And now we go to the river and it comes the 6 of spades. Not the brickiest card, but once again, I do have the ace of spades. And luckily, when my opponent sees this card, they actually decide to check. And then now I actually start thinking for a bit here. I was really thinking they didn't have that much behind. I was going to just put my opponent all in. Did have the ace of spades, but I was thinking, damn, is this really just too thin here? It's really too thin value. And I have to think about it for half a minute. Did believe, yeah, this was just too thin. I'm just not going to do it. I do check. And then my opponent turns over queen 7. So, yeah, I mean, I think my opponent probably would have called, but they really just have to have a queen there for me to get them to call an all in. Otherwise, if they have a 9, I just get stacked. So, yeah, ultimately, I just think it's a little bit too thin, even though I have the ace of spades in my hand. But hey, we take down a massive pot here. And next hand, I wake up with ace jack suited in small blind. And this time, the $20 straddle is on, ladies and gentlemen. With that being said, under the gun does open all the way up to $60. Does fold all the way around to me in small blind. I decide to put in the 3-bet to $270. Folds back around to under the gun. And they're going to be putting in a call. And we're going to go heads up to a flop of ace, king, 8, rainbow. Do have 8 of spades there on the board, so have some backdoor equity to the nut flush. Also backdoor as well to the nut straight. So pretty good board for me right here and for my range. So I decide to put out the C-bet here, a little small wager. I do put out $175 into the pot. My opponent pretty much snap calls here. Turn comes the queen of hearts. Not the time that I really want to see a queen here. My opponent could have jack 10, even though I'm blocking that a little bit, but they can also have ace queen, which I was already behind up anyway. So yeah, really scary card for me here. I do realize my opponent only has roughly $700 behind, so less than a pot size bet. So I decide to slow down here on that scary turn. I do put in the check, and literally as soon as I put my hand down on the felt to check, my opponent announces they're all in, and I'm like, fuck, all right. I mean, what a tough spot here. I do have top pair, decent kicker, but I'm just behind to so many hands here. They can have ace king, they can have ace queen, they can have ace 8 suited, pocket 8s, pocket queens, jack 10. I just lose to like every freaking hand in the book. They could be turning the hand into a bluff, but turning the hand into a bluff on this board where this like smacks my range would be really hard for my opponent to do it. So yeah, I just think about it and I decide to just let it go. I just have better hands to call with here. Going to just move forward to the next hand. The next hand I have king jack off in the under the gun $10 straddle. $20 straddle is not on this time, so under the gun does open to $35. Does fold all the way around to me, and I decide to put in the call. So we're going to be heads up, and we go to a flop of queen 9-10. Oh, baby. We just flopped the stone cold nuts on a rainbow board. Loving this, loving this, loving this. I do, of course, check to the pre-flop aggressor. They put out a pot size bet of $75, and I thought about check raising here, but I was like, there's really no flush draw or anything on the board. If they're betting pot, maybe they hit a card on turn, or they're just going to continue betting, right? So I decided to just put in the smooth call. Turn brings in the queen of diamonds. I believe that this is the card I wanted to see with them betting so big on this board. Hopefully they just have trip queens at this point. I check, and then for some reason my opponent checks back. That's not what I wanted to see at all. The river brings in the 6 of clubs, and hopefully I can bet here and get called. So do bet $110. Then my opponent just folds. Just so annoying. I mean, flop the nuts and can't get paid. Flop top set, lose a lot of money. But that's poker, right? We'll move on to the next hand. And now we just move to the table where the $20 straddle is going to be on every single hand. This is the main game, ladies and gentlemen. And I get dealt king 10 offsuit in a low jack. Open up to $60 with the $20 straddle being on, and the $20 straddle does defend. So we're going to go heads up to a flop of king 6-4, 2 clubs. I do not have a club in my hand or a spade, so pretty much unblocking all their potential hands here. They check, decide to put out a bet of $90. My opponent immediately puts in the call. Turn brings in the 6 of hearts. They check. And really scary here when the middle card on the board does pair. So I'm going to be checking back a lot here. And yeah, I do check back. And the river brings in the 8 of diamonds. My opponent thinks for a little bit, and they put out a bet of $225. Check my cards, realize once again, yeah, I'm just unblocking everything. They can have a missed club draw, missed straight draw like 5-3. 7-5, all of those hands. Well, not 7-5, that's a straight. More so like 7-8 that they turn into a bluff, things like that. But yeah, they do put out a bet and think for a little couple seconds, and I do put in the call. My opponent immediately mucks his cards, and yeah, I don't even have to muck my cards as well and just take down the pot. And next hand, I am in the $20 strata with ace jack offsuit. It does fold all the way around to small blind, and they put in the limp for $20. Big blind ISOs it up to $85, and I decide to put in the 3-bet, making it $260 to go. Small blind, of course, folds, and big blind is going to put in a call. We are going to be in position here, and we're going to go heads up to a flop of queen 6-3, 2 spades. Don't have a spade in my hand. I do have the ace of clubs, so looking pretty good here. They do check. Definitely going to just be bet in range here on this flop. I do put out a bet of $155. My opponent thinks for a little bit, and he does put in a call. Turn brings in the king of hearts. They check, and now we have a tough decision here. King is really, really good. I do have way more ace king than my opponent has, so it's really smashing my range here. And I do unblock spades, and I can hit a 10 for the nuts, so have a lot going for me here. And yeah, with that being said, and for some other reasons, I'm going to be double barreling here. Open to just take it down here. I do put out a bet of $575. It puts my opponent really in a blender spot here. They have to think that depending on what the river is, and if I do really have ace king, I'm going to just be barreling off. I still have all the aces, ace king, ace queen, king queen, pocket queens, pocket ace. I just have so many good hands here. They have to be really, really careful. And he does think for about a minute and a half. I'm like sweating bullets at this point. Like, just lay it down. Just lay down your hand. And eventually they do finally fold, and we take down this massive pot. Very nice. And ace jack is just loving me today. My 3rd time with the hand. And small blind, $20 strata once again is on. It does fold all the way around to cutoff, and they decide to open it up to $65. Button folds, and I put in the 3-bet versus them to $270. Folds back around to cutoff, and they're going to be putting in a call. And we're going to go heads up to a flop of 8, 7, 5, 2 diamonds. I am drawn to the nut flush here with the ace jack suited. And I have 2 overs. I mean, looking pretty good here. I decide this time around to not c-bet. And I put in the check. And surprisingly, my opponent checks back, and I'm really surprised here. I actually thought they were going to be betting. I was actually going for the check raise, not going to lie. I was just going to check raise here, but hey, I guess I get to see a free turn. I'm not complaining. And turn comes the 5 of spades, so not the best turn with a 5 pair in here. Definitely just want to see a diamond and have the nuts, right? But poker doesn't work like that all the time. And I decide to check again, see if my opponent would give me another free card. But this time they have other plans and they put out a bet of $225. I put in the call, of course. River comes the jack of hearts. We jack them. Hoping that our jack is good. I mean, could be good. They can have pocket 9s, pocket 10s, some weaker jackets. I mean, yeah, could and should be good here a lot. I put in the check again, and unfortunately, my opponent doesn't check. They put out a bet of $400. I mean, I look down at my cards, and I'm like, well, I mean, I can't fold at this point. Top here, top kicker, not losing the much. They can be turning a hand into a bluff. Never know. So I do put in a call, and then they turn over my favorite hand, pocket queens. Very annoying to lose to the ladies, but hey, I still love them, of course. No problem. And if there's one way to kind of try to get unstuck for a session, it's playing another PLO bomb pot. We are loving these. Each of us puts in $25. So it's going to be $200 to a flop of queen, 10, 8, and deuce, 3, 3, both rainbow on both boards. Do have king jack in my hand as well as 6, 5. So we're drawing to the nut straight on one board and drawing to the nut straight on another board if nobody has a boat already. And here I decide to check, and under the gun +1 actually makes it $50 to go. And I'm going to be putting in the call as well as 2 other players at the table. So we're going to go 4 ways to a turn, and it comes the ace of clubs, looking beautiful, just turned the nuts. And then on the other board, it comes the 4 of hearts. I turned the nuts on the second board, but it's not the nuts, just the nuts straight. So we have the stone cold nuts on one board and just the nuts straight on another board. Once again, we're losing 2 boats. Pocket 4s just got there. Pocket 3s is already there. Well, pocket 3s is quads. Y'all get what I'm saying. Just got to worry about the boat. And a lot of us do check. And the under the gun +1 person bet $50 on the flop. They decided to put out a bet of $350. We do have one opponent that folds, and then Button actually puts in the call for $350. And at this point, I'm like, well, don't have that much behind. Time to bump up the stakes. I just bet pot, which pretty much I end up betting like $1,750. And under the gun +1, thanks for a little bit. And he does put in the call. And Button actually just is really just looking really extremely sick. Apparently they have a hand, but they really don't want to fold. And eventually they do fold. And I do end up calling under the gun +1s remaining all in just for $250. So yeah, Button was really in a tight spot. And they actually flopped a boat with 3-2, so they actually would have beat me on that board. So luckily they're out of the way. Luckily this person in under the gun actually had so much chips, puts them all in and just puts them in a really shitty spot. So we're just going to be going heads up to the river, and on one board it comes the 9 of diamonds, and on the other board it comes the ace of hearts. We flip over our cards, and I see that we both have king jack for one board, so we're going to be chopping that one. But then for the second board, my 6-5 for the straight actually holds because they just have pocket kings on that board. So we chop one board, and then I take down the second board. I actually end up winning $1,005 in this pot. What a way to end the session, because this just has not been going my way. And what a crazy session that was. I was down $3,000 at one point, and I managed to finish the session only down $1,117. That's a win for me. I'm not complaining. And this session at 5-5-10 with the $20 straddle didn't go my way, but make sure you check out this session here at Hustlers Casino where I played the same stakes, but this time I managed to book a win.